Adonainu, morainu, Melech and Moshiach and Redemption. Welcome to the summary of the sicha that the Rebbe Melech and Moshiach Shlit distributed on Tesvav, Iyar, Tafshan Aleph, Dvar Malchus and Beis, Siman Beis. Rebbe Melech and Moshiach Shlit starts off that the Rambam writes that Moshiach is going to come and do things he's going to do, and anyone that does not await or believe in Moshiach's coming, he's a kafir and Tora. Why? It says in the Parshas Nitzavim, B'shav Hashem Lekecha Shvuscha, Hashem will bring back all the Jewish captives from Golus. And that proves that there's a idea of Geula in Tora. Then the Rambam brings the second proof. Bilam said a nevuah that he spoke a whole nevuah, speaking about adonainu v'lei ata, adonainu v'lei kardev, which is a poem speaking each one four times. Once about David, and once about Moshiach, which also proves about the day of Moshiach. That concludes the first halacha. The second halacha, the Rambam brings a third proof. The third proof is that it says in the Torah that Hashem will make Eretz Yisrael bigger. Then you have to add another 3 arei miklot, cities of refuge. And since Hashem gave a mitzvah to add more arei miklot, you have to believe there'll be such a time. The Rebbe Melech and Moshiach Shlit explains what's the difference between the different proofs. The first proof is proving that Hashem will bring us back from the exile. The proof for the essence of redemption. However, it does not prove that you have to believe in a person, the Moshiach. Therefore, the Rambam has to bring the second proof. Second proof speaks about adonainu v'lei kardev. I see him, I see a person as a person, that he is accomplishing the redemption, and I have to believe also in Moshiach. Rambam can't only bring the second proof, even though it has the advantage that speaks about the person which is Moshiach, because the second proof is speaking about in a poem. It's in a poem. It's not in a clear way, and you can't. And if someone would deny it, you can't say he denies Torah, because he could say I explain the poem in a different way. Therefore, the Rambam has to bring also the first proof. It speaks about the day of the Geula in a straight way. Hashem is taking the Jewish people out of Golus. However, we have to understand, why does Rambam have to bring a third proof? Speaking about arei miklot, simply the first 2 proofs cover all aspects of Mashiach that we must believe in Mashiach. And also, why does the Rambam put the third proof in its own halacha? In other words, if every proof should have its own halacha, so the first 2 proofs should also have its own halacha. And if the first 2 are in the same halacha, put the third proof also in the first halacha. The Rebbe Melech and Moshiach Shlit starts off that what's unique about arei miklot, that's a mitzvah. A mitzvah is something that cannot be changed. Therefore, once Mashiach is part of a mitzvah, it becomes something that's everlasting. Just like mitzvahs are forever and they don't change. In other words, when Hashem says through a navi, through a prophet, about something is going to happen, not necessarily does it have to happen. If it's a not good thing, it could be the Jewish people, whoever it's talking about, will have a sichos, will have a merit, and the bad thing will not happen. Even if it's a good thing, if the navi doesn't give it over, rather it stays by the navi, it also doesn't have to change. So therefore, even if a Mashiach is told us by a navi, even though it's told through a prophet, nevertheless it's able to be changed. Now it's technically in a way that it can't be changed, but it can be changed. However, because it's part of a mitzvah is everlasting and can't be changed. What's unique about a mitzvah over Torah? Simply we already have a proof in Torah. The first proof, a Shabbos Shvuscha, it says in Torah, which is also everlasting. That by Torah, even things that could be Torah, that could be the Yigre Mechet, and wouldn't fulfill what does in the Torah. And also, someone could explain the idea of Torah and say it's talking about a spiritual sense, not necessarily physically, not necessarily in the simple meaning of what it says in the Torah. And even though it's hard to explain so, but we can't call someone that says so regarding Mashiach that he's a kafir in Torah, because he says it's spiritual. And therefore, the Rambam brings it as a mitzvah. As a mitzvah, it's something that's everlasting, and therefore it can never be changed. And we can also diuk that the Rambam also writes regarding the nevuah of Bilam, Sham Nibo, that Bilam prophesies regarding Mashiach. Why is the Rambam tell us that he prophesied? We can't say the Rambam is trying to prove and what Bilam says is true, because if it's brought in the Torah, it's obvious that's true. Rather, there's a strictness, there's a chumrah regarding the nevuah. The nevuah is something that comes from Hashem straight to the person. Therefore, also the penalty for someone who does not listen to a Navi is chayuv misah. It does not matter what he says. So here the Rambam is saying that we see that Moshiach has this strictness, has this chumrah that's by a Navi. And according to this comes out that the idea of Moshiach is said in all parts of the Torah. It's said also in the stories of Torah that Moshe is telling the Yidden, V'shav Hashem gechas shvuscha. Said in the voice, the prophecies from the Bilam that came through Hashem. And also it's in the mitzvah which is everlasting. The Melech and Moshiach Shlit concludes, why is adonainu the mitzvah, which is brought as a proof to prove that Moshiach has to be, just like adonainu has to be. Because the whole idea of adonainu, the city of refuge, and that's the idea of a refuge in place, in time. The times of Mashiach are just like ideas of just like a time of mikvah, a time of refuge, a time that there's no like things, and that's why the mitzvah of adonainu is chosen, and that should be the mitzvah to prove that Mashiach is everlasting, just like it's the mitzvah. Adonainu, morainu, vaed, Melech and Moshiach and Redemption.